Ariel Abraham, thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned earlier, this is for our Using Social and Digital Media class. So I'm excited to have you telling us about TaskRabbit and how your company uses social and digital media.
So. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly an honor, so thank you.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up at TaskRabbit, as well as what TaskRabbit does and how you use social media to do your work?
Of course. So before TaskRabbit, I dabbled in a few different things. So I've worked in PR, I've worked in events with celebrities, I've worked in social media, of course, and now I'm currently the social media and influencer marketing manager at TaskRabbit. I've been at TaskRabbit about 2 months now, so still fairly new, still getting acclimated, of course, but it definitely feels a lot longer. If you're not familiar with TaskRabbit, it's actually an online and mobile marketplace that matches freelance labor with local demand. So essentially what you can do is book what we call a tasker through the TaskRabbit app or desktop, and they can help you with a wide variety of things. So if you need help with furniture assembly, if you need help with mounting a TV or a picture on your wall, and even waiting in line, like running an errand for you. So you can actually book a tasker to do one of those things and many, many, many more.
So if I wanted somebody to sit at the post office for me?
Sure, you can book a tasker to do that as well, yes.
Wow, okay, excellent. Okay. Can you tell us how you go through the process of developing a campaign? So a lot of companies, what they do is they kind of do this weird, where they throw something on a Facebook post or Instagram with no real thought behind what they're doing and kind of hoping it sticks or there's some sort of an engagement. And what we're covering in class is the need to actually develop some sort of a campaign with a storyline behind it and all of that goes with that, just like any sort of communications campaign.
Of course.
How does TaskRabbit undergo that process? What is the thought process behind a campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, most companies have an editorial calendar or what we call a content calendar, right? That houses a bulk of our content that, when ready, we're able to push out to our audience. So usually a team lead will take the initiative of assembling a brief. And from there, that person will actually get different parts of the marketing team together. So you have social, you have email, you have even blog, and different angles. And we all get together for a kickoff meeting and really kind of give ideas on how we can contribute to that campaign, right? Mm-hmm. So in terms of campaigns in general, they can range from anything. So seasonality, influencer partnerships, or even my favorite, the national fun holidays, which are very geared towards social media. So like a national, coffee day or, a national dog day, but it really depends on what your company and what your brand is focusing on.
I think those national holidays, as silly and bananas as they are so helpful when it comes to just trying to get everybody on the same page over something as silly as National Waffle Day.
I know. Some of them have gotten really out of hand.
I do like National Coffee Day. I do feel like coffee day every day.
Me too. One of my favorites.
How is it that you make decisions on what appears on one particular social media site versus others? Because I think the one thing that I had mentioned to you earlier is that I've noticed several of the posts that you put out on Facebook are the same as you would put on Instagram. So what is the thought process behind that in terms of what platforms you use for various campaigns?
Yeah, I think at the moment we're sharing similar content across platforms, but in parallel, we're brainstorming different ways to reach our audience in the most strategic ways, right? So since I've only been at TaskRabbit for about 2 months now, we're still at the beginning phase of building out our new content calendar. So by posting the same content across the different channels, we're still getting a sense of what our audience wants to see. And I think that's most important because we want to post what our audience will engage most with. I mean, that's for any brand, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we're currently trying to figure out.
Are you noticing certain things are kind of like pulling people in different ways? Like our questions
I really feel like people engage, and this is not just at TaskRabbit, but just in general at previous positions that I've been with, people really engage with Instagram story. And when you utilize those stickers, I really feel like people love to get involved. They want to feel part of the process, right? They want to feel part of the reason you're posting this is because they've asked for it. So I think that's really, really important for us to see.
Mm-hmm. Agree. And actually, that was the other question: is how important are stories? And do you find people are responding to them? It sounds like they are.
Yeah. So for storylines, stories are super important in social media because it brings a human element to the post, right? So it gives the content more of a relatable feature. So users definitely respond well to storylines. It gives them something to engage with and strengthens our community. Nothing's more important than an engaged community. So that's what we want to really focus on.
Are you finding certain platforms that you're definitely keeping your eye on because you feel like it will be a benefit to TaskRabbit? Like, I know everybody's all about TikTok right now. So are you looking very closely to TikTok and maybe less on other platforms?
Yeah, so I think that every single brand right now will say TikTok. I don't think just TaskRabbit. I think every brand right now is looking to TikTok. Everyone is on there, you know. If you want to reach the most eyes, it's definitely there. One viral video and you're golden. You know, I like to give this example, this most recent example of someone named Emily Marico. I'm sure your students have heard of her. She became viral off of one video of, you know, smashing salmon and ice and with mixing it with rice. And that one viral video that she had a few thousand followers, now she's at almost 4 million in like, what, 2 weeks now? So, you know, that's really a huge selling point for every brand. You know, the one viral video can really make or break you. So I also was reading an article, I want to say like 3-4 weeks ago, that TikTok actually overtook YouTube in the most average watch time, which is so interesting to me. Because, yeah, when you think of YouTube, all you think about is sitting there and watching it, whether it's on your desktop, whether it's on your phone. You know, I sit there sometimes and watch series on there, podcasts. So it's really interesting that these 60-second and now 3-minute videos have really overtook that, which is actually crazy. But, you know, as a marketer, you really, really need to be on the latest trends. And if TikTok is that latest trend, which it seems to be and doesn't seem to be going anywhere, you want to be there. You definitely want to be there.
And I wonder if that's the reason that YouTube is now experimenting with shorter videos. Because at the one point, YouTube was going for those long, hour-long, almost like tutorials, and people were, the longer the better. And now they're changing their technology, because I'm assuming they're going to try to compete against the TikTok and the Instagram Reels.
Absolutely. And a lot of these, you know, to veer away from that question a little bit, but, you know, a lot of these platforms, specifically Instagram, you see that they want to move towards, now they see TikTok's overtaking. So you see them slowly wanting to move into that video space and kind of remove themselves from the static imagery and really hone in on video. We'll see. I have a really strong prediction that we're going to see a lot of video content across all platforms come next year.
Yeah, and I'm curious, and I know that we didn't talk about this earlier, but are you starting to think maybe even audio or not so much audio? I'm just thinking of things like Clubhouse, which kind of came out strong and then kind of petered out. It's still there. But
exactly. I mean, it's still there. I'm definitely on Clubhouse too, but I don't see myself actively checking it at all. I think it was the initial hype, but it's funny because I really thought that Clubhouse with that TikTok would have been similar, you know, that initial hype during the peak of COVID. And then now it's continuing. I mean, I don't want to say overtaking Instagram, but I mean, it's doing its job. It's definitely doing its job.
For sure. Yeah, I was on Clubhouse earlier this week. I'm like, I just can't see myself on this for very long. It just doesn't grab me in a way that the other social media platforms grab me.
I think it's also that visual aspect. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to see things visually. So, you know, the audio is great, but it's very similar to a podcast. So what's really the difference, right? I love podcasts. I would choose a podcast over Clubhouse, you know?
100%. So. Absolutely. So you work a lot with influencers.
I'm sorry, it broke up.
I'm sorry, you work a lot with influencers?
I do.
Okay, tell us about how you work with influencers.
So, yeah, of course. So for influencers, you know, when I guess I'll go the route of how we choose essentially, like to partner with an influencer. So in my eyes in social media, and this is again, not just TaskRabbit, this is really every company that you work with, this should be like a main goal and focus, is really monitoring the influencer you want to work with and see what they're posting recently. Are they posting something that aligns with your brand? Is there something there that can be an organic integration, right? So I personally like that organic integration versus something that's just like a SponCon or, you know, something that's more evergreen. I like when there's something that could really be part of the brand. So for example, I can give you for TaskRabbit, you know, let's say we're monitoring a random influencer and we see like, oh, guess what? Our lease is ending, starting to move. That would be a red flag. Like, okay, we need to hop on that, right? We need to reach out to this influencer and see if they're interested in partnering for either, you know, the many categories that we offer. So moving, organizing, packing, furniture assembly, anything like that. So that's the first step in really determining an influencer to work with in my eyes. And then of course comes the more analyticals, right? So the engagement rate, the follower count, things like that. But my first initiative is really to figure out the organic storyline behind it, because I think that's what will perform best. And again, not just TaskRabbit, any brand that you work with.
That's a good question though, is how important are those numbers for you to make a decision to use or work with someone? Does someone need to have 1 million followers, or is it more about quality instead of quantity?
Absolutely. I think it's more of that organic fit, like I mentioned, you know, and you know, when it comes to engagement rate versus follower count, you know, a lot of brands say, oh, this person has 1 million followers, let me go work with this. Oh, they have like a Kim Kardashian, right? Who has over 300 million followers, but what's their engagement rate? That's what I want to get down to. What is the engagement rate of that person? Because that person can have 1 million followers and they're getting like 12 comments, right? Something seems a little off there. So no matter what company you work for, and this is my, you know, my tried and true, always check engagement rate first versus follower count, because the followers will always follow, right? But the engagement rate that you see their audience is really engaged, you'll get an understanding of how well your post will do or your partnership.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think we also need to remember that people follow businesses for various reasons, or follow people for various reasons. It's not necessarily because they want to engage, they just want to follow what they're doing.
Absolutely.
That's really helpful from a campaign standpoint. What is the one thing you didn't realize was part of your role as a social media manager that you wish someone would have told you about in advance?
So, I would really say customer support. So when I say customer support, when you get into the social media space, you kind of parallel as a customer service rep, because there are questions that are not related to the content you're posting, but more generalized customer service type inquiries, right? So what I like to do at any company that I've been at so far, I always love to form a relationship with one person on a customer service team that I know that I can ping at any, not any hour, but I can ping throughout the day and say, hey, this inquiry came in, love your approach on how to handle it. Any ideas how we can go about this? When it's content related, of course, it's on our end, but when it's more along the lines of maybe like an escalation, or I don't know, something about an order, like from a previous company, there was questions about an order. I don't have access to your order information. So that would be a place where I would say, hey, can you provide, your email or your order number, and I'll have a customer service rep kind of look into it. So it's really, 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 community management and customer service. That's what I would say for sure.
That is the one thing that I kind of forget that any of my colleagues talk about is we have another one, or we have media requests that come through have social. So you need to be able to do more than just what you're working on. You need to be able to make connections with other parts of your company so they can.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And also when you're working in social media, just in general, you really want to have a relationship with each part of your company. It doesn't only have to be marketing. It should be everywhere. You really are collaborative amongst everyone. So I love forming different relationships and getting to understand what other people in the departments do. So that's my personal favorite.
Sometimes you even get good ideas that you can incorporate into a campaign. It's not just about things that are reactive, because you can also be proactive.
Absolutely.
What do you think I haven't asked you that you feel would be really important for students who are really interested in a social or digital media campaign work to consider as they're going through their careers, either as a new person or somebody who's a little bit more seasoned?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's a question. It's actually a statement that I like to go by, and this is what I really would love to have this part stick. Out of our whole conversation today, this is so important to me. When you get into social media, my thing is you really need to understand social media. It's not about liking to post on your personal. It's not about your personal style. It's about understanding the brand and understanding the platforms, right? What you think might work may not work. And maybe because that's your personal style you're trying to bring in. You need to understand the audience that you're posting with. So I really, really, really believe, I get so many questions, like, oh, I love social media, I'm posting all the time, how can I get into the field? And I say, that's amazing, that's the first step. The first step is to love it. The second step is to be actively on it. And then the next step is to understand it, work for a company and really get a grasp. And I always say, test, trial and error. Social media is the one place that you can go to for testing different types of content, because you know what your audience wants to see. Even a year down the line at a company, you don't know you have new followers. You don't know what they want to see, So getting them involved, really asking those questions, even being straightforward and saying, hey guys, what do you want to see? What type of content interests you the most? So we can start, incorporating that into our, not usual content, but in our content calendar, right? Yeah. So for me, I would say really, really, really testing out, understanding, the company and understanding what your audience wants to see. That's something that I really want to leave with you, because I think that's very, very, very important.
I'm going to throw one more at you then. How do people disconnect and not be on their devices, especially as a social media manager, right? You want to just constantly be monitoring. How do you make that balance? How do you create that balance where it's like, I have to break?
I know that's a tough one. You're asking, that's a tough question. Yeah. They're really, social media is like 24/7, similar to PR, right? It's all the time. You're always on the go. You're always checking things. You're always monitoring, because you never know what if an escalation arises. You don't want it to get out of hand. So how do you really disconnect? I think you need to really set time for yourself and understand, where have you crossed the line? Like, you're taking it too far, right? So for me, for example, I recently moved. So every night now I have a new kind of routine, and around 6:30, I like to take a full out break, and I leave my phone at home, and I like to go for like a 3-4 mile walk. And for me, that is truly disconnecting, watching the sunset, just relaxing and taking a minute to breathe, especially you're on it all day. You're also you're working all day, you're on Zoom calls. So I think it's not just about social, but just taking a break overall is so important nowadays, especially work from home, right? You don't know how to really disconnect from your work versus just staying at home and being with your family or, just relaxing.
Yeah, I'm finding that a lot of my friends we're out to dinner and they'll still have their phone right next to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Put it away. You're off work right now, but it's true. It's like if somebody comes back, somebody looks at you, you have to react.
Exactly. And if you're monitoring, I don't want to say if you're monitoring every few hours, but you'll get a sense when you start working in the field of when you can put your phone down for a bit. You know what I mean? It's a challenging one, but it has to be done, right? Yeah. It has to be done. It'll encompass you.
Yeah. You will burn out eventually.
Absolutely.
Ariel, is there anything I haven't asked that you think would be important for us to know? Either about TaskRabbit or your work?
I would say, what platform do you really think gets the most eyes? Not in terms of viral videos, but where should a marketer be, right? And I would say Instagram, solely because you have the option to utilize, Instagram story, reels. They have so many different features that you should be utilizing. And as a marketer, you kind of want to be on top of all the new trends and all the new features. So for us, I really love at TaskRabbit to use the different IG stickers. So, quizzes and polls and the question story. I love doing Q&As. I think every brand should be doing Q&As at least once every 2-3 weeks to really get a feel of what's going on in the world, right? What's going on with their audience. So I would say, what platform is really great for a marketer to be on right now, besides for that viral TikTok, of course, and it should be Instagram. Another platform that I just want to point out would really be Twitter. I don't know if everybody noticed, which I'm sure everybody did, that on Monday, there was a global blackout of social media. Well, Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, and every brand took to Twitter. And it made you realize, why aren't we on Twitter as often? You're always posting essentially, but you're not really on it, right? As much as you are on an Instagram or on a TikTok. So these are more just points than questions, but I really, really want future, people in social media to really grow on Twitter. I think that's a platform that marketers should really be on as well. And if I can give one example of a Twitter account that I personally love, which is very, different for me, is Wendy's. Wendy's.
Oh, yeah.
So Wendy's Twitter is very sassy, I guess you can say. It's very sassy, but it's also very informative, and they make it really fun. And brands really need to do more of that. Make it fun, make it witty, make it exciting, make it so, we're talking about you in conversation, right? So all of these things really trickle down to just your role as a social media manager, how you bring on, that content to make it witty and really exciting for your audience.
Wendy's is awesome. And I think one of the things that we cover in our class is the humor really helps. There's so much other going on in the world, but humor, if you do it right, can really impact your engagement as well.
Absolutely. I love it. And I love that Twitter jumped right into it on Monday and was like, hello, everybody. And just everybody chimed right in. And, really that was a wonderful day. Honestly, I loved it. I enjoyed being on Twitter all day, just reading all the funny comments.
Yeah. Well, we had no other place to be. So
I know. People were actually, when I was on LinkedIn that day, people were making funny memes also about, people are on LinkedIn and on Twitter. I'm assuming that's, TikTok was also very slow for me that day. So I was a little, it was a little slow. I
wonder how much people had on Monday since they weren't, not social media people, but other people, because social media people probably what is going on?
Oh my God. Every second we're all refreshing.
Absolutely. I'm like, I can't get into my Facebook business. What is going on in business?
Wow. It was definitely a nerve-wracking day. But then at the same time, you have to think about it. If you're not on it, clearly nobody is on it. So you're not missing much, right? You're not missing any, comment or escalation or anything like that, because nobody can get on. So that's how I tried to think about it.
Ariel, this was so great. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And do you want to give us your handles in case any of our students want to follow you?
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I love speaking about social media. And if there's anything that feel free, have your students reach out to me. You have my email. Yeah, happy to answer any additional questions. My handle's just at ariel.abraham, but follow us on TaskRabbit. Would love to see you there and for you to see what's to come.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.